and you're ready to go.
All right, perfect. Hello, my name is Zachary Romero, and today I'll be giving a talk on how I'm using Emacs for Android to replace my fitness app I normally use. So it goes without saying that a lot of the mobile ecosystem these days are pretty hostile to the interest of its users. So there's privacy policies that are constantly collecting your data and selling it without your consent, bombardment of ads, and then there's a lot of features that are locked. Sometimes features that the app gives you, they're put behind paywalls, and so a lot of the ecosystem isn't in the best interest of users. So and obviously there are apps like on f-droid and in the Android ecosystem that do try to address this, but the solutions overall are lagging behind maybe desktop computers. So one option that has come in the past few years is Emacs on Android. So the build, yeah, it's just a normal Emacs build, and so it can do everything essentially, in theory, that Emacs can do. And so I got to thinking, how I could use Emacs to replace some of the proprietary apps that I use on a daily basis. So I mean, just when thinking about the apps that Emacs can replace, some of them seem quite easy. Some of them maybe might take a little effort, but seem doable. And then obviously there's a whole class of apps that would be pretty impossible to emulate on Emacs. So I mean, besides like to-do lists, note-taking, org mode, one thing that came to mind was my fitness tracking app. This is an app I use pretty often, and in theory, Emacs should be quite usable for this case. So um, so weightlifting tracking is so it's normally used to record what exercises you do at what intensity in order to progress week by week. So you might plan because yeah, you might plan on like slowly increasing the amount of effort you put into your various workouts from week to week, and then maybe you'll have put some like rest weeks in there, and so like you want a detailed plan and recording of what you do throughout the week. And so I guess way back, normally this would have been done on pen and paper. So you would take your notebook and just like write down on paper what you did. And this obviously works, and a lot of people do this. Um, but these days, there are quite a few apps that make this process quite seamless and effortless. So just as an example, really fast. So this is one of like the popular apps out these days that has such a feature. So you can save all your workout routines in this nice interface, and so you click a button, and then it starts. You know, you have the workout interface, and then you can you go through your workout, and then you can input like what things you do, and then it has this like fancy timer at the bottom. So like this is um, kind of like what a lot of people use these days, just for to make it as frictionless as possible. So obviously you can do like this bare bone text editing in Emacs. You just have to open up an org mode file and just right away. So, but there are a number of problems with this. So like especially on mobile, character by character editing, just like writing all this text out manually, maybe some formatting, it can be pretty tedious and not something you want to have to do, especially if you're like exhausted or tired. So, I mean, there's also like the problem of like remembering where in your workout you are, like how many of these way, like which like where you are, like which set number are you on? Are you on the first, second? And then also like maybe you failed, maybe you weren't able to like perform this, and maybe you have to make a note that so that's even more text editing you would have to do. Also, some things like unit conversions, like you could use calc, but then you'd have to like open up the calc and then number, unit conversion, switch buffers. So it's doable, but takes a little effort. And then also the rest timer. So like if you want to make sure you're resting in between these exercises you do, you'd have to maybe open up another app, or maybe you'd have to bring your watch, and then so that's another thing that these apps normally normally would do for you. So writing some eLisp I created a package to try to emulate that experience I showed you on that other app. So let me just demo this real fast. So here, the package is called orgfit. And so here, I'm going to start a new workout. And then here, I'm prompted by a list of routines that I have pre-written in org mode. So the header name is the routine name. And so I can, out of all these routines I've written, I can select one. And then also, I can have it populate. So here it's populating preset weights I had for it. Um, so yeah, so basically this is my current attempt to emulate that experience. So here we can, so here like the arrows and the tabs, they only go through like the editable fields. I can, so on the notes section you see here in the table, this is like my plan for the day. So I can press space to easily just fill out the data, tab, go to the next set. I can press quote to copy from above. There's also some interesting things with Android, like you can bind the volume down key. So here I have the volume down key, just like inputting like the data automatically and going to the next field. So you see there, it's quite seamless input of information. Notice also when all the sets of a single exercise are done, it marks that heading as done. Also, if you notice at the top, on the left, you have the session the session time for the workout, and then on here we have the rest timer. So the rest timer is actually just defined as an org mode property. So here it's saying that okay, you should start the auto rest timer for 3 minutes every time you do a set. So here, let's fill it in, go to the next one, and now the rest timer is set for 3 minutes. And so like here I can just rest and here I just have, yeah, the information right here. Also, you'll notice here we have some calculations at the bottom. This is something also that those apps provide, like in order to make sure you're tracking on certain levels of intensity. Um, let's see, what else do we have? We can add warm-ups, automatic warm-up set inserting, unit conversions, and then something else to note is that all of these actions I'm doing, they're all bound to a single key to make things as quick, as effortless as possible. So yeah, that's the app in a nutshell. And then, so how is this done? So the philosophy behind this is to use org mode as a base. So all the functionality, the timer for the session, clock in or clock in. All the data you fill in, the exercises, routines, those are just org headings, like with nested entries. So yeah, and then all the movement, like a lot of the editing stuff is just going off of the org mode API. So like here, my upper field is actually just using it's using like the org table go to line function. Adding a note is org table put. So like all of my functions I'm using, they're just building off of the org mode API. And I found that this pattern worked pretty well. Yeah. So you get the benefits of org mode, um, and then the ease of using it on mobile. And so I guess in the last few minutes of this talk, I'll just go over some just quick things about working with Android, just that might come up. So the first thing is notifications. This is actually an interesting feature. So in the Android build for Emacs, you have the function Android notifications notify. And so here, this is how you can send a notification. So my rest timer, for example, utilizes this function to let you know when your rest is over. And the cool thing about this is that uh, the build for Emacs lets you, so here in the app settings, under notifications, so here you can actually pick a notification group, which is here, so it's set right here, and you can just customize it. So like, what sound do you want it to make? Do you want it to vibrate? Do you want it to show on the screen? And so this way, like, you can easily, so if you are resting, you will get a notification. It will vibrate. It might make a really loud noise if you want it to. And so this is all customizable. And the cool thing is that if you have other packages that utilize notifications, all of the notification groups, they're all customizable separately. So Oh, and there we go. So that notification you see on the top is actually from the Emacs app. So you notice here we're not even running Emacs, and yet we got that rest timer is over. So that's one thing. Next, keyboard. So just when working with Emacs, I found using the unexpected keyboard. So in particular to be really helpful with all the key bindings. So like if you just want to try out Emacs from like f-droid or something, I would recommend using a keyboard like this to let you use like the meta keys and the control keys. And then yeah, using this keyboard, I haven't really noticed any problems with Emacs key bindings. And then lastly, just like my setup. So SYncthing Fork is another app I rely on heavily. Um, so as I mentioned, all this org fit files are all org mode files. So I use SYncthing Fork to synchronize them between my laptop and my Android. And then also like to get this package, like just syncing a list folder might be helpful for like if you want to easily edit your init file on Android on your machine. So yeah, SYncthing Fork is another helpful thing that you might want to look into if you're exploring Android um, Emacs build of Android. So yeah, Emacs on Android does actually have the potential to replace a decent number of common use cases, and org mode can be a solid foundation for any of these applications that you're thinking of. And yeah, I highly recommend giving Emacs on Android a shot. And that concludes this presentation.
Thank you so much, Zachary. That was awesome talk, and I appreciate you preparing it for us. The couple questions on the pad. If anybody wants to jump in and throw in your questions or comments, of course, happy to read them out on screen here. I think when we were talking backstage before, you had asked me to kind of read them out, but feel free to jump in and kind of take over at any point. This is the you show. I'm kind of prop manager.
All right, cool. Yeah.
So the first question we had was a comment. This is very cool. It would be nice to build up some org rep max calculation formula into calc. Is that something that you've thought about?
Well, I mean, one rep max. Yeah, I mean, not in honesty, I'm not sure about the extending calc itself. Like if there's, if like what are the ways of extending calc itself? But this package org fit, I mean, it does have the one rep max. Like I kind of had to dig into that. Like uh so let's see if I can find the code. But yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, so this is specifically this package. But yeah, yeah, you can use the various one rep max formulas for this. Extend this clock report. Yes, yeah, exactly. Graphical reports. These are all something that it currently doesn't have, and these nice apps do have. Like they have charts of all kinds. Like you can see your progress from week to week on various exercise. Like they have like charts galore. All these like fancy apps, and in theory, it's not. It wouldn't be hard at all to like because like there's GNU plot. There's those and they have like very good packages on in Emacs itself. So I mean I assume integration would be pretty seamless. So yes, that is definitely on the list of things I want to do.
Have you ever wanted to modify the functionality of your mobile device while working out? Any good or challenging experiences or tips with that?
Yeah, that's actually funny. There was a time where um yeah, I mean it's like debugging. There's like some bug I was having with my code, and so I have in the middle of a workout, yeah, just start like open up the debugger and kind of gone through. But and the cool thing is that I mean the biggest thing by far is unexpected keyboard. Like I can't state how much unexpected keyboard is because like with that keyboard, you can literally just like it's not hard at all to like you can do meta X or control meta X or control U, control meta X to like debug. Like you can do all the key bindings with unexpected keyboard. There's no problem whatsoever with that part. The only part is muscle memory. Like it's because you get the muscle memory of like the Emacs key binding, and so you have to kind of like I mean that translation is actually kind of you have to think about it like okay, what was that key binding again? And you have to kind of like do it with your fingers, and because like doing it on Android is I mean, it takes a little longer, and it's just a different different muscle memory.
Gotcha. Sorry if you've covered this. Does the rest timer end with an audible notification?
That's the cool thing. So with the Android notification settings, you can I could show that again in more detail. So go into settings, apps, pick the app, notifications, and then here we get that org fit rest over. And so here you can set, for example, whether it's a silent notification, and so this won't make noise. You can do or like make it have a noise, and so you can have it make sure it's pop on the screen, and then you can just pick whatever ringtone you want, and you can make it like and then obviously you have like the whole volume settings, so you can like when you're working, you can just set the volume pretty high. So if you do happen to set your phone kind of away, you set the volume high, maybe make a really annoying sound or a loud sound you won't miss, and then you'll be set. So that works. That was actually maybe one of the biggest surprises. I wasn't expecting that to work so nice.
One of the next question relates to the unexpected keyboard. Question is, have you tried other keyboards such as Hacker's Keyboard?
Not recently. I haven't, so I couldn't compare them.
Fair enough. Another keyboard question: have you tried flickboard on f-droid? The commenter says this is the craziest keyboard. You use one thumb.
Oh, that is interesting. Let me see. Flickboard.
Flickboard.
I'll have to try that. I'm curious. You get the key bindings done. I wonder if the key bindings and all that would. That's interesting. I'll definitely look into that.
So I'll vamp for just a moment as people are typing in more questions. A good moment to just thank you for the talk. It's personally, it's one of my favorite things to see at EmacsConf is, a glimpse into a world that kind of isn't mine, right? But it shows how, Emacs is sort of the bazaar in the cathedral and bazaar sense of we're all just here sort of hauling our bags of toys into the center square and, making a, I don't know if it's a house of cards or what exactly it is, but it's managing to keep me afloat personally. And I just appreciate your, kind of expanding my world. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of different.
So next commenter, I'm curious. Sorry, I skipped one here. This user interface is simplified, but still keyboard based. Have you thought about ways to make it more touch based?
Good question. Yeah. So the only thing currently, I think, of like specific touch-based functionality I have, so this is like so let's see, Control X, Control Plus. I think that's the okay. That key binding wrong. What was it? Okay, whatever. So in terms of touch command, so pressing on a headline will actually unfold it and move your cursor to the next field that so like at the beginning of the table. So like there's that, and so
It sounds
Yeah, I'm
like
just
that is
exploring it.
something you're thinking about.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, maybe like a little thing at the bottom. Like, so this thing has this app has this, if you notice, like if you do something, it has this rest timer at the bottom.
Mhm.
So I mean, it wouldn't be pretty, it wouldn't be, it seems quite doable to just have like maybe something at the bottom, like for a timer, and then you can just like plus 15 seconds or cancel it, or, just, and then those could all be just like touch based. And so, yeah, and then obviously just like classic Emacs, the Emacs like um, clicking actions. Yeah, they work just fine. Like, so there's no like weird Android touch thing you have to worry about.
So let me ask a question of my own here. Just thinking about that myself, how would you, ideally approach that? Is that something that it makes them, that you'd most prefer to sort of dive into yourself, or would you think about factoring that out into like some kind of org touch higher level API, or
Oh, I mean, personally, I mean, I think just like um, not some like, or yeah, I don't think there's even. I think the current Emacs, like just like the clicking and just like adding a lambda to it, that works. I mean, that feels like it works just fine, and like, you can add the code, like the command right there too. Like, so it's all like, yeah, it's all, there's, I mean, and that's kind of a nice thing, is like having everything like close, like, not, just like not having those a lot of layers of abstraction. It's just like, you have a lambda to the click, and then, just do
that
what
was my
the,
experience too. This is a few years ago now, but when I was starting on the dungeon mode project that a friend and I presented several years ago at Emacs conference, we were shocked to learn just how usable. This is echoing a comment I see from Elephant Ergo on IRC, who says touch seems so wildly usable nowadays. That's so awesome. That was really my experience too with Dungeon. We were just working on it, we got the fog of war going, and then just took it onto a touchscreen laptop at the time, and we're just shocked to learn, everything just worked.
Mhm. Yeah, maybe like the hardest thing is actually just the default font size. You have to like, you can't have your font too small, or you'll mistouch things a lot. But
Yeah. Well, there's no font size large enough to make me, you know, uh, to make me comfortable on a smart device, unfortunately. But that, I think, it may be a me problem.
oh, I think this question we might have missed. So the file sync. Uh, yeah. So the file sync, in terms of
Well, thank you.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, what's worked for me. I did have to play around with
Let
this
me
a
let me
lot.
go ahead and read it out. You mentioned file sync. What have you found works well for you? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in terms of what, yeah, I did have to play around with this a lot. But SYncthing Fork is what I eventually settled on. And I mean, that's another thing that I mean, it wouldn't nearly be as usable. Like, Emacs wouldn't be as nearly usable without it. So SYncthing Fork, essentially. Okay, and then I also have like a droplet on DigitalOcean, just like, so that's kind of like that's kind of like what bridges it together. So like, so my Emacs can sync to that, and then my machine also syncs to that. And so like, it kind of gives, it kind of, I kind of, I don't have to have them both like, on the same time. It's just there, that copy. And so that works like pretty well. I also found that like like editing code in general, I think this is also goes with the um, development experience question. So like, I'm curious about the development experience. Do you have do you do everything on the phone? And that's the thing, like none of my development in general is done on the phone. Like, just because, for one, my muscle memory isn't there, and two, just like in general, like typing on a virtual keyboard on the phone it's just really slow. Um, so yeah, all the development is done on my machine, but then there's like the problem of like, you have to have a init.l in your Android, and so like you're gonna have to write some, like, you know I found like you'd have to like when you first get Emacs set up, you might have to like write some, I don't know, like you'll kind of have to like get into your init file and then just like maybe just like start to put things together. But the cool thing is with SYncthing Fork, I'm syncing I'm setting it to load off of a sync directory. So like this init file, my init Android file, is synced with my machine. So if I wanted to, I could just edit it on my machine and just have that synced automatically. So
Cool.
that makes like the whole like init, because like it's such a like that is one of the it's just like writing your init L and Emacs on Android is just a kind of a
We
yeah
do
it's
have one more question. I can't help but throw in a comment there. I think that's an extremely good tip, right? That if as we're exploring Android, we want to think about that as adding support for another port of Emacs. So the whole dance of, oh, I took my init and I wanted to use it on BSD after mostly using GNU Linux. Now we're going in and we're looking at our Emacs, all of our Emacs init stuff and thinking about compatibility, turning features on and off based on the OS that we're running underneath and so on. I think that's pretty heads up advice. Let me read out this other question. Have you thought about integrating cardio tracking like time runs, bike rides, and so on?
Yes, I definitely thought about that. And that might be another thing like where a touch interface might be, it might be helpful. So like um the I don't know if I can easily pull it up, but like the app itself, oh yeah, here it is. So you can see kind of how they have and you can kind of see how this fits. This is like an org, these you can see that these are just tables, right? Like this is just like this whole interface in general just like kind of screams like, an org mode file with you have your different headings. Like here's a warm-up heading and then you have the tables and you could just like envision how you could have a org table with one of the columns called time, and then you could just imagine like there'd be a button there and you can just have it click and then you'd have a timer in the background that would update this timer. Like it's so, I mean, conceptually there's nothing like really it conceptually maps really well to like um to this. So yeah, I mean that's definitely something.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Great answer. So I think we got about 90 seconds left. Perfect amount of time, I think, to just wrap up. Closing thoughts. I'll share mine first. Really appreciate you, Zach. Thank you for putting this talk together. I think this is the type of talk that's really going to tie the room together for people that may be, not sure how they can take use of the Emacs port for Android. Although they've been, interested in that, this can be a really good way to kind of open up the world. Thank you for putting it together.
I would just say like definitely just try things out. Like if you think, they're just like random ideas pop, like a book tracking app or like a recipe app. Like, those there's a lot of things that you do on your mobile device that aren't like banking apps that you could easily that seem like they could be done in Emacs. So yeah, just try different things out and shit. I would love to hear what other people do.
Bravo. Appreciate once again you're coming together, and especially you're doing doing it live. I know that as a conference we have a lot of preference for those recorded talks and getting the captioning together, but I just have a special place in my heart for the energy that comes with a live talk, and I appreciate you doing it.
And thanks for putting this up. EmacsConf.
Now we have this awkward pause of a few seconds as well as the stream will be cutting away. And we're out. Right. Nice job. Really good. Way to roll through the punches and kind of do your own job of setting the pacing. I appreciate it. I'm gonna run out because I desperately need coffee. If you can't tell.
All right. Well, thanks for the help and putting for the volunteer.
My pleasure. You did the hard parts.
Bye.